I love the conclusion to that reading, praising God and saying, the kingdom of God has come near to us. And so we come to the last Sunday of the season of Eastertide. I wanted to start by saying I'm a little tired today. Last night, my dog, Minnesota, had a rough night. You see the picture of the two of them there, Pemberley in beige, Minnesota in gray and white. Tragically, we lost Pemberley in November after 10 years of her serving in ministry at Highlands in North Vancouver and then St. Aidan's Broadview here in Victoria. She looks more like the poodle. They are supposed to be half poodle, half Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, but I do believe their pedigree is dubious. Minnesota, who has those beautiful gray spots and is mainly white, and so is named after the snowy expanses of that state, has something wrong, and so he coughs. The first time I heard it, I was frantic because it sounded like kennel cough, and for those of you who have dogs, you know, kennel cough is not something to take lightly. So we went up to the vet, and the whole time I was telling myself, Sheila, be very brave, you're going to make the right decision. Because, you know, when you have a little dog and you have to be brave, that's not a good day. However, the doctor looked at Minnesota, who was doing his coughing, and she said, well, listen to you. You are honking like a goose. I thought that was quite irreverent, but she said, I know what's wrong with him. And she diagnosed it immediately. And so last night, when he started honking like a goose again, I went off and got the medicine, and then we all got some sleep. I wanted to tell this story, first of all, because they're just such engaging friends and family members for us, but secondly, that whole experience is one that we've all had, whether or not it's with an animal, where something happens in your life, and you're nervous, you may be alarmed, a sense of not knowing what to do, and you go to someone else who says, I see a pattern here. You're saying, no, it's quite random. It's never been like this before. I'm worried about this, this, and this. And they are able to say, there is a pattern. This is not random. This particular kind of dog, a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, apparently is vulnerable to this. A veterinarian got it immediately. I was still floundering. The reason why that story came to mind when I was trying to combine the lesson, that beautiful lesson of being sent off as ambassadors for Christ, and Nurses Week, and tomorrow's day against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia, I began to think there is something in common here. And what's common is the search for pattern, or else it will feel random. And at first, when we are presented with something like Minnesota's cough, it feels random. Somebody's beaten up on the street. Someone else has had a hard time finding an apartment. These seem like random experiences. But from a different perspective, you see the pattern emerging, and you realize this is not random. And this is in the biggest category of homophobia. That's the pattern, that's the commonality. And when you can see that, you can begin to respond a little bit like the veterinarian, knowing what you're up against. Perhaps then able to pull some allies together and to respond. Jesus said, I'm going to send you out, and I want you to look for the pattern of acceptance and peace. And when that happens, stay there. I imagine for the 70 or the 72 who were sent out, that was very unnerving. How are we going to know, other than they actually being rude, how are we going to know? And Christ said, you will know. You will recognize the pattern. Finding solace, finding compatriots will not feel random any longer. And so in our quest to educate ourselves, to become knowledgeable allies, not just bystanders, but to be knowledgeable against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia, is to learn what is not random. And then to take steps, to equip ourselves, to engage ourselves, and to take action. Oddly enough, the day that Florence Nightingale was born, which is May 12th, 201 years ago, being a nurse was also not a very highly held, respectable profession. They were looked down on. Terrible things were said. It was awful for Florence Nightingale, who was born in Florence with a background of wealth and privilege and education, to leave it all to go to the Crimean War. 900,000 people died in that war, and many of them, well, the majority, not from their injuries, but from the conditions around the war. Now, Florence changed things by explaining how it wasn't all random. She was a tremendous statistician. And so she was able to say to the powers that be, and she did it in the first kind of, really check it out, her graphing was very creative, showing the difference it made, putting in different things, different approaches. So she saw the pattern, and her ability to respond to the pattern forever changed what was being done. Now, of course, it was a long time ago, and many of the things that she missed, others able to see that new pattern have addressed. But Florence continues to be an inspiration for all the wonderful things she did. And this year, interestingly enough, the poster for Nurses Week said, "We answer the call." We answer the call. Jesus said, "You are called to go out." Now, I'm not saying that nurses are answering Jesus' call, but that same sense of vocation, a higher calling, looking beyond ourselves to go out and do the thing that needs to be done. Like the veterinarian, we need training. Like the pet owner, we need to listen to the people with training. And so we learn, what are we seeing, only when we're willing to see it. For too long and too many circumstances, people have not been willing to see the suffering of the poor, the suffering of the wounded in war, the impact of homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. We're called to see. It seems amazingly simple. It is beguilingly simple. Because once we really see, it's not random anymore. And we have a part to play. We have a part in that pattern of redress, that pattern of justice seeking. So today we're in a mix of very, very rich Sunday here at First Met. The end of Eastertide, being sent out, as Jesus' story in St. Luke did. Being reminded of the suffering around us, and being reminded of people's response to suffering. Florence inspires us still because of what she was able to accomplish, how she would not take any excuses from herself, and how she believed that once you were determined to, you could change things for the better. Christ has sent us out, and we are seeing. We wanted change, so that what we once saw as random, we now see as an opportunity to take distinct, educated steps of redress. And then may it be said, here is good news. This is the kingdom of God that has come near us. May it be so.